I was talking about this with someone the other day, like really lean into your intuition. I feel like I didn't start doing that until I was in my 30s. And I know it's a lot easier when you have more life experiences, be it in sport or career or relationships or family. But I've never really felt like my gut or my intuition has led me astray. And I really wish that someone would have maybe told me that when I was younger, because I think there's a lot of doubts when you're new in the world, you're a new adult, you're out of high school, you're out of college, and you don't know the right answers. And you have mentors or people you can talk to, but ultimately like the answer needs to come from within. And I think the sooner that you can really listen to those voices of reason within yourself, the sooner you'll be more satisfied in pursuing all the things that you want to do in life. And it'll feel a lot more rewarding too, because you're doing it for yourself and you know that, and you're not doing it for anyone else.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeffrey Stern today on the Running Effect podcast. Jeffrey is one of those guys who wears multiple hats, from, quite frankly, an elite trail athlete who's done all sorts of different trail races, as well as being a fast on shorter distances as well, running 15:55 in the 5K, 112 for the half, and 2:36 for the marathon. But his bread and butter is the longer distances. He's gone 8 hours, 29 minutes for the 100K and 15 hours and 35 minutes for the 100-mile distance. He also currently is the head of sports marketing at Suunto, one of the biggest running watch companies in the world that I'm sure many of you have heard of, and has a long history of working with a bunch of top running companies in this space. I love this conversation because we dive into business insights, but also training insights and racing insights and the world of trail running, as well as how he manages all these things as a head of sports marketing at a massive company while also still trying to be his fastest self at 39 years old. I really enjoyed this conversation. Appreciated Jeffrey and his wisdom and his time. If you enjoy this one, hit the follow button so you don't miss more conversations with people like Jeffrey in the future. Give us a 5-star review, takes next to no time, and share this podcast with a friend, a teammate, someone who you think would find value and benefit from it. That is the easiest way in which we can grow, and I'm trying my hardest to grow this as much as I possibly can, so I'd appreciate any help in doing that. And without further ado, enjoy this legendary conversation with the man of the hour, Jeffrey Stern. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sat across from a legend who has done just about everything in the sport, from directly being in the corporate side of it with so many companies that I'm sure many of you would know, to being a remarkably accomplished athlete himself. I think, Jeffrey, I even read stuff that you're a coach, consultant. I don't know how you find enough time in the day to do all that you do and still find time to be a successful athlete, but that's why I'm here today, to learn. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Dominic. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words for sure. I don't know, the legend moniker really fits me. I feel like that gets thrown around a lot, but yeah, I definitely appreciate the kind words.
How many hours of sleep are we getting tonight?
Sleep is my number one recovery tool. Actually, I would argue that it's everyone's number one recovery tool. And I shoot for 9. I think I fall short a little bit, but I like to have lofty goals both in life, work, sport, and sleep. So you aim for 9 and you end up a little short. 8.5, 8 is pretty good.
What can you function off of? Like, so for me, it's like, I don't know, I should probably sleep 9. I try to hit 8, but if I get below 7, like, I'm not myself. Like, I'm sitting at my computer trying to respond to emails, and I'm just like, notice I'm not getting anything done.
I feel you on that. I think if I get too many nights in a row of below 8, or let's say below 7:30, I definitely feel it. 2-3 nights of 7-ish hours, and I'm definitely not functioning at 100%.
You recently took a role at, how do you even say the name of the company? Suunto? Is that how you say it?
Correct.
Yeah, Suunto, as a head of marketing. I feel like a lot of these sports watch companies have a lot of cool modalities in terms of like sleep and recovery. I know you're not like a designer of the watch or watches themselves, but how have you found benefit from using it throughout the years? And also just like, yeah, any thoughts on sports technology? And, 10 years ago, we had the most basic Garmin's that, no hate to Garmin. I like Garmin, but it's just crazy how far technology has come and the different things that watches can now do.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the players in the wearables and health tech industry have really grown a lot over the years. My mind just went to when you were asking kind of how it's evolved, that I used to wear a Fitbit. I don't know, maybe Fitbit is too old for you to remember,
No,
but
all the
it
kids
was like a
wanted those for
little,
Christmas back in the day.
yeah, a little skinny Fitbit. I don't think it was GPS, or the one I had wasn't GPS, but it was like tracking steps and sleep and all of that. And that must have been right on 10 years ago, 2015, 2016. I think the technology has come a long way. I like to say, rising tide lifts all boats, like what Garmin and Koros and everyone is doing, helps Sunto. And we kind of are all in the same ecosystem trying to push like what the technology is offering, both on your wrist and then within the app on your phone that is giving you HRV and sleep data, TSS score, like how recovered you are, all of that. And it's definitely come a long way, even in just the last 5 years, I'd say. And I think there's a lot of new exciting stuff in the pipeline coming in the next 5 years too.
What happened to Fitbit? I'm looking this up on ChatGPT as we speak. I have not heard that name in years until you brought it
I
up.
want to say they were acquired maybe by Google. I don't know.
2.1 billion. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah. So I would assume they got folded into some sort of Google tech, but Google doesn't have a wearable. They don't have a watch. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what ultimately ended up happening with them.
Yeah, it says Fitbit smartwatches like the Sense and Versa saw production decline or stop as Google pushed its Pixel Watch series instead, though Fitbit trackers remain listed on the Google store. Interesting. Fitbit hadn't released a major new tracker for a while, but Google has confirmed new Fitbit hardware coming in 2026. How oversaturated do you feel like that market is? And how do you stand out as well as a major player?
Yeah, I think, one way that, obviously I just started with Sunto a couple of weeks ago. One way that we are looking to stand out is leaning into our heritage. Like, I don't know how many people know this, but we're turning 90 years old this year. So we've been around for almost a century at this point. And I think, a lot of our technology and products and just the general, again, heritage of the company differentiates us from a lot of our competitors. Obviously, technology is always changing, but there's something I think really special about a brand that has kind of stood the test of time and is still innovating and still pushing the envelope. There is a lot of saturation, but I think as the industry is growing, more and more people are caring about like these metrics and tracking data and, having a better grasp of where their fitness level is. So with the amount of people in the world, I don't think we're even close to maxing out like the number of people that are wearing smartwatches or GPS devices.
I don't want to hate on any specific company. Like I'm not affiliated with any at the moment. I have a Sunto watch, I have a Koros watch, I have a Garmin watch, I've had a Whoop before. Like I've tried and tested almost all of them. I see a lot of benefit in all of them, but it is funny. Like you're talking about consumers, like, we're going to see more and more people start to wear smartwatches. We're not at the end of this. And I see a lot of people wear a Whoop on one wrist and like a smartwatch on the other. Whoop's a really interesting company where they're a lot more, I feel like, mainstream than a lot of the running specific watch companies. Like, I feel like everyone knows what Garmin is, but I feel like in the general sphere, you go to the grocery store and you're not necessarily going to see it as much. I feel like Whoop has gone really mainstream, but Whoop's a really interesting model where it's really just tracking, sleep and recovery. How do you view someone like that in this space where they're probably a competitor, but they're not so much, they're an interesting competitor. Like it's an interesting angle.
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it. A lot of people will wear a Whoop or a Ring and then also have, their Apple Watch or their Garmin or their Koros or their Sunto. I think generally and historically speaking, the GPS watches have been for a little bit more hardcore athlete endurance pursuiter. Whereas like, Apple coming into the market with their Apple Watch in rather recent years, I think is opening the door to a little bit more like tracking on kind of the activity front versus like Whoops. But I mean, again, I think the fact that Whoop is so mainstream helps kind of the use case for us to continue to incorporate some of like that technology, albeit a little bit different, but like into our watches. So it's like a complete package. I think you're moving closer towards like not necessarily having to wear a Whoop if you have a Sunto, right? Like we're covering 95% of what a Whoop is offering you. I think a little bit of it is kind of coming at it from like a marketing lens, and how do we maybe attract some of those like less hardcore athletes and bring them into the Sunto ecosystem.
When you think about your journey in the sport, which is a whole, I feel like we could have like 5 podcasts in one podcast, but when you think of your own personal running, and just the evolution of GPS watches, do you remember what your first GPS watch was, and compare it to what you rock with present day, and the differences?
Yeah, I think I had a forerunner. I don't remember the number, but it was definitely one of those kind of original, like very small screen. Had an interesting clip to charge, and you had to plug it into your right. I don't think there wasn't an app. Maybe I'm pretty sure I had to plug it into my computer to upload it to Strava back in the day. So yeah, I mean, it's come a long way for sure.
When you think to present day watches and kind of the current lineup that Suunto offers, is there again, I know you're very new to the job, only a few weeks in, but is there a particular, aspect of a watch that blows you away in terms of technology and how far we've come?
I mean, I think about the Vertical 2, which actually I got on my wrist right now, and the battery life is 60 hours, which I think, just a handful of years ago would have been kind of unfathomable that something like that with, that much tracking capability and the number of, activities you can choose from, and you can control your music, and you can, read emails and text messages, and the fact that it can last, it could last you basically, almost of a week is pretty incredible.
I'm curious to ask you about sort of the athlete hat that now is kind of in the corporate hat, helping, one of the major players in this space develop, their marketing strategy. And I think we've seen this in the running shoe world specifically. Like I know a lot of people, like even Garrett Heath at Brooks, great example, professional runner for Brooks, then goes on to, again, similar role to you, like head of sports marketing at Brooks, I think is his current role. And I think we've seen this even across like different sports industries. Major players, major companies are starting to pull from people who aren't just kind of like the white collar fancy degree, marketing business school XYZ. They're like tapping into the people who actually were the consumer and actually like played a role in it. How do you view that, and how excited are you to, help Suunto with their marketing strategy as someone who, oh gosh, has ran so many miles, and is kind of what they would consider like a target consumer?
Yeah, I feel like it makes it easier for me to connect with the athletes specifically. A lot of them I know on a personal level. I was just emailing with an agent at the end of last week, and she listed out all the athletes she thought might be a good fit for Suunto. And I'm like, oh, wow, I know all of them. Like, do you mind if I just ping them, personally, instead of like going through you to set up the conversation? I mean, I have their cell numbers in my phone, and I think there's a lot of value in that, in like building the trust and the relationships versus, it's always great to connect with new people. Like I'm super stoked to be connecting with you. I know we probably have mutual friends, but we've never met, but there is something really cool about leaning on relationships that you've already formed, like outside the job when you come into the job, that I think gives you a certain amount of just kind of cachet, and it makes it easier to seamlessly integrate into some of the new responsibilities and big projects that we have in the pipeline.
Very simple question for you, but I'm curious nonetheless. Like, why running? Why do you do it? Why do you invest in it? Why do you work in it? What intrigues you about the sport and the act of running?
I think I would wind back the hands of time and go all the way to like when I was a teenager, playing team sports, soccer, baseball, football, and I was always coined and tabbed as like the fast kid. Like if we were doing laps or running a mile, like everyone was kind of, going off of my lead for setting the pace. I never ran cross country or track and field, really. I just kind of, again, led the running pursuits on whatever ball sport team I was on. And so I think it's kind of always been in my DNA, but I didn't really fully pursue it until after college, and found that I really clicked into what I remembered about running as a kid in small doses. And I mean, anyone that's run knows like the more consistently you do it, the more addicting it is, right? You get in that groove and it just becomes this thing like, wow, it goes from a point of feeling really bad to feeling really good. And then you feel good and you find new ways to like suffer and make yourself feel bad. But then you want to overcome those hurdles, be it, in distance and speed or whatever, and just learn to kind of like progress yourself. And I've been doing it now for, I don't think 20 years yet, but getting close to 20 years and still learning stuff every day about my body, about my mind, about different training principles, different ways to come at it via, cross training or other sports, and really just wake up and love it. And then the opportunity to, work in it, which I've done for a long time now, and kind of mix, I know it's pretty cliche to say, but like mix your passion with your profession. I wake up and I'm like, wow, I've got 100 things to do, and I am excited to try and tackle all of them. And I think that's just the kind of life I want to lead. So, and running is an integral part of that. And I love having it be there for me.
So just to clarify, so I don't misassume or misask the question, kind of discovered the sport in high school, but didn't get serious until after college. Yeah. So off of that, I'm fascinated. Like you read some of your times, right? You're doing some of the longest, you've done the oldest trail race in America, I think 16 consecutive times, like crazy long distance trail feats that I can't fathom as someone who's only done a 50K trail race once. But then you look and you have like fast PRs in the 5K, the half, the marathon. And so what I'm fascinated by is like we have a younger audience, a lot of traditional kind of, you get into cross country young and you explore the sport and then you stop, or maybe you just like recreationally jog. But what would you say to the people listening today who have a more unconventional start in the sport? Just in terms of like, you can get really good and you can find your niche in the sport at 30, at 25. You don't have to be 14, join a cross country team. That's not like the only path to success in the sport.
Yeah, I would say just follow your interests and follow like where your intuition and your heart are taking you. I think for a long time when I was growing up, I felt like I associated specifically as like a baseball player. And so I ended up kind of playing baseball year round, and I really loved it. And it shaped me in a lot of positive ways. But I think I had other interests that were maybe pulling me in directions that I wasn't sure or comfortable exploring. And I maybe wish I would have, because I don't know, maybe I would have started running earlier, and maybe I could have, pushed faster PRs, but still, even starting later, I think, I didn't have like necessarily those lifetime miles in my legs. And so I felt like if I was running seriously, and I think I ran my first 50K when I was 30, I felt like I had maybe the legs of a 20-year-old, right? Because I hadn't been pounding the pavement or the track for, most of my childhood. So it's always like this catch-22, like, oh, if I would have started running earlier, what would my PRs be now? But I think you can't really, have those regrets necessarily. And I've really enjoyed my kind of somewhat unconventional path towards becoming faster as I'm getting older, because I wasn't running when I was younger. And so it's like a different type of excitement and challenge in a way, if that makes sense.
What was the moment or the race that you accepted for yourself? Like, oh, I'm a runner. Like this is what I do.
I think running my first 50K for sure. It was the longest distance I had ever covered. I ended up making a wrong turn, so I made it longer. I think it was more like a 53K, which, when you're already upping your distance by a lot, like adding an extra 3K was a little disconcerting. But I just remember it being like a complete sufferfest, being in that box. And the thing about it, and you've run a 50K, which, I mean, I know you said only a 50K, but come on, man, a 50K is really challenging, even if it is your longest distance ever. But, being in that box with like, I don't know, 10 to 20K to go. And you're like, wow, I really need to like grind this out, right? The body is definitely revolting, and it's, can you control your mind? And so much of life, and especially endurance sports, is a mental test. So I think being able to push through that in my first 50K and getting to the finish line and realizing, yeah, that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done physically. But then, since then I've done so many more longer races and so many more harder 50Ks that you just got to kind of lean into it.
The funny story behind my 50K is I was super serious about the sport in high school. Came out of high school, had struggled with some sickness and injury the last 2 years. So I had like a chip on my shoulder, probably unhealthy, but I think I was like just annoyed that I didn't do the things that I ultimately wanted to do. So I kind of tried to prove it through training for a marathon, like right out of high school. Got injured over 2 blocks, but had really good like training blocks themselves. And after the second one, I was like, I'm gonna take a break. I've never taken a formal break. I've been running since I was 5. Like my mind needs a break. So took a long break, and then saw in Columbus there's this massive metro park called Alum Creek State Park. It's not hilly, but it is pretty technical trails. And I saw that they were doing like a 50. It was like a 50K. So I texted 2 buddies who go to OSU, and I was like, oh, would you guys want to do this? I was like, this would be fun, dad lore. At that point, I hadn't really been I was probably running like 3 miles 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And I was just like, those runs, I was literally running like 650 pace. Like I was not going, I was just like running for complete fun. It was like kind of a new chapter in my life. And so I was like, oh, I'd be interested to see, like, could I run a 50K off of next to no training? I think I ran 10 miles once the month leading into it. And then my longest run outside of that was like 4 miles. And then everything else was 3 miles. So I went in with like next to no training. Funny enough, I did wear a Suunto watch because they had sent me one like a month or 2 before. And the battery life, it's funny, you said it for your current watch, I did not leave a dent in the battery whatsoever. But I remember that race, like you said. I mean, it was just like, it was a spiritual experience of being out there for who knows how long and still having so much longer to go. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure you can say this with trail events. Part of the reason I love it and I'm excited to like get more involved as I get older is like, it's not running. It's an adventure. It's like a completely different event. It's non-comparable to a marathon or a 5K. You literally bring gummy worms to eat like halfway in a loop, and it's like, oh, there's a table with Coke cans, and it's like, oh, this is a really interesting sport. I'm here. You sit in a lawn chair for 5 minutes after every loop. Like, okay, this is interesting. I kind of loved it. It was really interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't have explained it better myself. I do feel like you maybe could have done a couple more long runs, but I'm sure you know that. But
and real
yeah,
quick,
it's
my intent with that was I wanted to prove to myself, I want to see if I could do it off of no training. So even in the month leading into it, I don't think straight. I was like, I'm intentionally not training for this to see if I can do this. So
yeah, that's a good challenge. Did you end up with any injuries or any issues after the race, or you were pretty good?
No, I don't think so. I was definitely sore the day of, but I think I have some, I wouldn't say genetic predisposition, but there's something odd with me. Either just like a lifetime of running, or I just have this ability to run really far, period. Like one of the guys I did it with ran a 2:39 marathon 2 weeks before. And I would say I was more comfortable during that whole thing than he was. And he was running off of 2:39 block. And we weren't going that fast. So I think my secret, like if I have one gift in life, it's like I could just run. If I go slow enough, no stopping me.
When are you signing up for your first 100-miler?
I don't know. You tell me, man. I would love to do like have you done Leadville or any of those? I know those are the more flashy ones, but those fascinate me.
I've done Leadville. I had a cycling mountain biking career before I got into running, and the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. Of course you did.
What haven't you done?
The Leadville 100 mountain bike race was my second mountain bike race ever, and very similar to like your experience running a 50K or your first 50K. It's like, I have how much further to go? It's a pretty eye-opening experience.
Would you ever run that, or like Badwater, 235, any of those?
I would consider running Leadville. I think Badwater is a little bit too much pavement for me. I do love being on the trails. I think the trails are a little bit easier on your joints and body, just generally speaking. I mean, running 100 miles is hard enough. Like, why pound the pavement? Have massive respect for people that do that in the middle of summer when it's over 100 degrees. But Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have a ton more 100 milers left in me, and that one is not on my short list.
What are your thoughts on like the speed project? Would you ever do something like that, whether group or individually?
Yeah, I do have interest in kind of the relay. I don't know individually, but like the relay element looks really cool. Again, I think coming from a more traditional like team sports background growing up, I really have always loved tapping into team elements within kind of more individual pursuits. And I guess what I mean like that is like when I was cycling and I finally got good enough to join like a road cycling team where we would have strategies like this is the person we want. I don't know how much you know about cycling, but like if it comes down to a sprint, we're all going to try and lead out this guy, or like this is our breakaway guy. Like doing those team type elements within a very like individual sport like cycling has always been super fun. So to answer your question, doing like a relay like the speed project I think would be super cool because it really invites in that kind of team element that I've always found special to me over the years.
What are your thoughts, either from like an athlete perspective or a marketing perspective, on the rise of the last man standing backyard ultra events?
Those people are got to be some of the toughest people in the world, I think, to line up on a start line not knowing how long you're going to run for or go for is just, I mean, to me personally, that sounds like the scariest thing ever, right? I mean, you got to do hard things, but like, I mean, I don't even know what the world record is these days. They've gone like 4, 5, 6 days now. I mean, that's just unfathomable. I think it's really cool. Like, again, we're pushing, human performance limits. There's so many other unique factors at play here, combining in the sleep, and the pacing on each lap and all of these different things that are really on the table when you're running for days on end with no end in sight. And then again, like back to my last comment about it being somewhat of a team sport, I think it's really special. I've watched some documentaries and I've watched some races on it, like how the competitors are like really uplifting each other. Like, let's go. You obviously need that assist, right? You need that second runner to be running, or you need two runners to keep going. And once one of those runners drops, like the race is over. And so if they really are pushing for a world record or a new country record, like it's two people at minimum. And oftentimes I feel like it comes down to, and you see like 3, 4, 5 people that are all like really like working as a cohesive unit to be like, okay, we got to get back on the start line. The lap's about to start, and like really that kind of competitive but cohesive energy I think is really special. So I guess long story short, I think the backyard last person standing events are super cool, and just ultimately impressed with anyone that toes the line and goes for something like that. I don't know, maybe I could try it, but it seems like one of the most challenging things you could do in running.
It's the sleep deprivation that would do it for me. I don't know how those guys manage to like fall asleep for 5 minutes. Yeah, it's great. I've talked to one of the guys. He might hold the world record. If he doesn't, he's right up there. Kim Gottwald, and he's gone, I think, for 5 days, maybe something like that, something insane. And he's like, it's more a fueling sleep thing than anything. He's like, the running is almost like and then like you're it's crazy. He's like, you inevitably get injured. So it's like, can you like keep your injuries at bay? Like, can you keep them under control enough? And his body was wrecked after that one. I think he had to take like a month off or something crazy like that. I mean, your body,
Yeah.
we're born to run, sure, Scott Jurek, but I don't think we're born to I don't think we're born to run for 50 minutes, nap for 10, and do that for 5 days straight.
It is a unique format, and I think to your point about like managing sleep and managing injuries and managing fueling, like it's really one of the cool things about ultra running, and especially the longer distances is, yeah, it's one person out there with the bib number on that's doing the competition, but like who's the behind the scenes crew? Like who's your crew chief? Who's your person that's super tapped into like your PT or your medical stuff? Like who's your fueling guru? Like it can be a team of 5, 6 people that are really helping to support you along the way and enabling your success.
If you could only choose one race distance, race format for the rest of your life, it's the only race you could do for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I mean, I will definitely stop running ultras at some point I don't want to say the near future, but the future. And I've always said, and I think a lot of my friends would attest to this, that the one race that I'll always do, which you kind of alluded to, is the Dipsea Race, which is my hometown race in Mill Valley, California. I grew up about a mile from the start. It is the oldest trail race in the country, the second oldest race behind the Boston Marathon. I think this year is the 114th or 115th. And I don't know how much you know about it, but it is a handicapped race. So really unique just format for racing, where the youngest and the oldest participants start first, and then they work their way back to athletes that are quote unquote in their prime. So like, 22-year-old collegiate males essentially. And they've refined the handicaps over the years to where their stated goal every year is that in the top 10, they have 5 men and 5 women from all different age groups that are as close to finishing together as possible. And I think in a world where, 99.99% of races, the fastest person on the start line wins the race, to have the Dipsea kind of stand the test of time and be so historic and continue to happen every year, where I think the first or second year I did it, an 8-year-old girl won and she outsprinted a 64-year-old grandma. That is just the most special race ever. And then the fact that I grew up there and I've done it now a bunch of years in a row, and, it's a little bit shorter. So in some ways more forgiving on the body, but it's really high intensity. I think that will be the one race that I would love to do for 50, 60 years straight, if my body allows me to.
Gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. It'll come to me. We're talking about races. The problem with having so many questions in your head is you can lose track of what you specifically wanted to ask. I do remember what I was going to ask. What's your elevator pitch to someone younger listening to this podcast about doing a trail race? Because I think a lot of people, even like competitive runners, it's like high school, go D1, ideally go professional, have your track career, then do marathons toward the end of it, and then retire and never run again and become Ryan Hall and get jacked. It's like, that's like, I feel like the ideal cycle for most runners. And I think a lot of people lose out on this feeling of like I was telling you, my one experience of a trail race is like, it's an entirely different sport. It's non-comparable to a 5-mile training run. It's non-comparable to the 3 marathons I've done. I view them as almost entirely different sports. It feels like an expedition. Feels like you found America for the first time and you're running through the woods and figuring out life. So what's your elevator pitch to, whether you're younger or older, people who haven't done trail events, why they should do them?
I think the adventure, and you alluded to it, right? It's a lot less about like necessarily laps or, your splits on your watch, because the terrain is going to be undulating, right? You're going to be hiking up and you're going to be essentially like free falling down steep mountains. And so you're really a lot less concerned with the data and, am I on pace? And, those kind of thoughts can bring about like, fear and concerns and like self-judgment. And you're, like, oh, I should be faster. It's like a trail race, all that goes out the window, right? Like you're just trying to survive. It's, like you said, you're out in the woods and you're eating snacks, and, it's a totally different experience. You can be super competitive, but you can also just be participating and like really trying to figure out like, oh, do I like this? Or, what's this all about, kind of thing. So it feels like for the most part, especially when you're getting into it, a lot less of a stressful environment and a more like free form, natural way to challenge your body and explore like what running kind of through the woods or in the mountains can do for you on a multitude of levels.
When you think about your future in the sport, do you have distances or races that you're still attacking and trying to be faster than you've ever been? Or do you feel like you're over that peak and now more of this like enjoyment, do it to do it, focus on, day job? Where's your head at with all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Last year, I felt pretty unmotivated to do the kind of training that I had been doing the previous, I don't know, almost decade. And I took a step back and got into some other sports and just kind of reassessed my relationship with running, I guess you can say. And I did a lot of the same events. I think I did them with not as much enthusiasm. I was just trying to work through a lot of different things in life and career and everything. But that being said, I do feel like a new person this year, and genuinely motivated to attack goals. And candidly, I turned 39 in a couple months, which is really hard to believe. We just had like a 20-year high school reunion, and honestly, I feel like I was just in high school the other day. So I don't know where the last 20 years have gone, but I know, a little bit of a tangent. I do feel like I can still push my limits and I can run faster. I would love to break 2:30 at Boston. I've been kind of close, but not really the last few years. And I think it's a course that suits me well. And I would love to achieve that goal. I'd love to run a 100-miler in under 15 hours. I've done 15:35, I think. So that's a goal. Yeah, I think those are kind of the main ones that come up, but also just like for me, the consistency, like showing up, being there, putting in the hard work. Sometimes you don't hit the numbers. They're the splits that you want. Again, kind of alluding to your previous question, but yeah, just going for it, knowing at the end of the day that like, hey, I put in a lot of years of work and I tried really hard to achieve those goals. And, whether you get them or not, it's not so much about the end game. It's more about the experience and the people you connect with along the way.
When you think about Sunto and your role there, what are some of the goals there? And, specifically, you're not paying me to say this, they're not paying me to say this, but I do want to help people that I believe in and help companies I believe in who are doing good. A lot of people listen to this podcast, a lot of people who are buying those type of products. And I think Sunto is one of those companies that, they've been around for 90 years, but I feel like they're starting to look really flashy and cool and come out with some unique new products. They just sent me one that's, I think, coming out or just came out in the boxing. I was like, this looks like an Apple product. This looks really sleek. This is not what I would have thought of 5-10 years ago in this space. So how do you feel about the company? What are the goals in your current role? I know you're only a few weeks in, and what's your elevator pitch to the audience next time they go to the store or go online to buy a new GPS watch, why they should consider you guys?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I appreciate the kind words. Sunto's OG, been around for, as you said, a long time. And I think we're really leaning into that heritage and also trying to push the envelope on the technology and all the advancements that are available to us in form of kind of the wearables and smartwatch arena. I'm really personally excited about trying to focus on reestablishing the brand in North America. I think the last handful of years, it's been, as you noted, a crowded market, and trying to figure out ways that we can really stand out from the crowd. And I think one that's working with athletes that are doing really rad things, whether it's, running super long distances or super fast or doing things back to back, and really into kind of tracking all of those different elements that we were talking about, recovery, HRV, all of that, and using kind of data to drive decision making for athletes. And I think like the trickle down and the ability for younger athletes to learn from that and open their eyes to new things is really exciting. And I think what goes hand in hand with that is like, what are the events that our athletes are showing up at, our communities are going to be at, and where can we be to support everyone? I think getting on the ground and doing that is mission critical to everything we're doing in 2026 and beyond. And I think, another topic that I'm really excited about is kind of breaking a little bit more into the road marathoning scene for Sunto. I think we've long been known as kind of the adventure company, outdoors, dive, ultras, trail. How can we bring our products to kind of a new customer within that road and marathoning segment?
In terms of your day-to-day life training for these events, I mean, 2 questions ago, I was like, do you still got it? And you're like, I still got it. I'm going for sub 2:30. It's like, okay, man, go, this is crazy. How do you structure your day-to-day time and make sure you're getting done everything that you need to?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost is the job. So everything with Sunto is definitely my priority, but I realize that I can't do my job if I'm also not taking care of like my own mental and physical needs. So with the company being so global, right? We're based in Finland, but then we also have headquarters in Asia and China. And we're building out a North American team. So we're working across time zones. I have a lot of early morning calls here in the Pacific, and then in the evening calls as well, and then throughout the day. So really just like trying to be good at planning and organizing while still leaving time blocks to get out for a run or go to the gym or sit in the sauna or walk the dogs. Finding that balance that everyone talks about. That's a lot easier said than done for sure. But I think I'm getting in a good rhythm here, and excited to continue to strive for that each day.
Final question I have for you. What's the final takeaway piece of advice for the audience today? Can be anything on your heart or mind.
Yeah, lean into, I was talking about this with someone the other day, like really lean into your intuition. I feel like I didn't start doing that until I was in my 30s. And I know it's a lot easier when you have more life experiences, be it in sport or career or relationships or family. But I've never really felt like my gut or my intuition has led me astray. And I really wish that someone would have maybe told me that when I was younger, because I think there's a lot of doubts when you're new in the world, you're a new adult, you're out of high school, you're out of college, and you don't know the right answers. And, you have mentors or people you can talk to, but ultimately like the answer needs to come from within. And I think the sooner that you can really listen to those voices of reason within yourself, the sooner you'll be more satisfied in pursuing all the things that you want to do in life. And it'll feel a lot more rewarding too, because you're doing it for yourself and that, and you're not doing it for anyone else.
Great words to close us out on. I did lie. That was the final serious question. The final question is a question I ask every guest on every single podcast. I don't know why I started asking this question, but I have for years. It's become tradition. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
I think I would probably make some sort of dessert, because that's my specialty. I have a sweet tooth. And more recently, I've been really leaning into epic banana breads. So I would make him the best banana bread he's ever had.
I love it. Jeffrey, thank you for the time, the wisdom, taking me through some of your story. I'll have to get you back on in the future. Like I said, I feel like you're 5 different books, and each book could be its own podcast. So keep crushing it, man. I'm rooting for you, and appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Dominic. It was awesome to talk with you. And can't wait to connect again soon.